do two more minutes. And then... yeah, right. That's okay. That's all right. To work. I'm often tempted, how I dress. I often think that what we should do is be like Winston Churchill. I have a bottle of scotch right here.
You never said the second.
Okay.
You just.
I think we're on. Okay, I'd like to welcome you to the moderators meeting. Thank you for attending. And before we start with some of the mechanics of the meeting, I first would like to thank all the committees in town for your hard work this summer, and also the employees of the town for all their hard work. Traditionally, summertime is a time where people can slow down a little bit and recharge their batteries and look forward to a fall of jumping back in to serving the town. And all of you were busy all summer, so thank you very much. And we greatly appreciate all the work that you do for our town. So thank you, and I'll be mentioning this again at town meetings. So before we get into the motions, I'd like to talk a little bit about the prefatory remarks that are traditionally made for the annual town meeting. At an annual town meeting, normally we would have a member, a chair of the Board of Selectmen, make some prefatory remarks before we start the motions. And we would also ask the chair, James, we would also ask the chair of the warrant committee if they wanted to make prefatory remarks. It's a little different for this meeting, given the narrow context and given that we're not going to be looking at overall budget items. But I still wanted to determine whether you would like to have the opportunity before we start motions, Carol or James, to make some preparatory remarks.
Thanks, Jim. So we've talked about it since the...
Carol, can I ask you to speak into the mic? I'm sorry.
Yeah, the three of us chatted about it after the meeting last week where we had the open hearing to see how it flowed. And we have some suggested changes to that if it's okay with you. So
Sure.
The selectmen's comments were all done by Robin at the end.
Okay.
And what we'd like to do for town meeting is split it up so that I will give some opening remarks, which basically takes the first couple of slides that Robin did, which was background, why are we here, how did we get here, and what's next. That kind of review of the last 90 days. I'll just talk about 40B, just to get that done and off the table. And then depending on what you want to do, we could do the committee stuff. And then Robin will focus, if that's okay with you, at the end
Sure.
on the financial piece that she had done last week.
Okay, so just to make sure, before we actually start the motions, I will call on you to make those prefatory remarks. Is that what you prefer? Or would you prefer that we do it after the motion?
I think the motion should go first because otherwise it's not grounded to something.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Okay.
Thanks. And James, what would you like?
We didn't think it was necessary or would sort of flow with the meeting, but I'm certainly open to it if
Yeah, I think Carol is correct. Given the special nature of the meeting, I see no reason to start with sort of introductory remarks, but I wanted to make sure.
we'll be presenting anyway,
Right.
and I think it really is going to encapsulate what we would say in the introduction anyway.
Right.
So.
Okay, great, good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Carol, also. Okay, that will then move us into the motions, and the first motion will be our traditional motion that will require that sources of alternative funding be identified should somebody make a motion that would require additional expenditures. And James, I understand that you'll make that motion, and Mr. Lawrence will second. Douglas, you'll second? Okay, great. Then we'll move to the main event. The first motion will be Article 1 for acquisition of the Snyder property. And again, it's my understanding that Mr. Stewart will make the motion, and Mr. Lawrence will be the seconder again. Okay. Then after we do that, we'll start the order of presentations. And let me just talk a little bit about the presentations. I was at the meeting last week. I thought people generally did a very good job. There were just a couple of glitches. One is, and I may be committing this right now, so tell me if you can't hear me, speak into the microphone. It is so important. I was sitting in the back row here, and I could not hear half the speakers. So very important, speak into the microphone. The temptation may be to turn and look to me or look to David Havlin, my assistant moderator, or Bill Leahy, the town council. Don't. Keep facing forward, looking at the microphone. If you want to move around, take the microphone in your hand and keep it always just a couple of inches away from your mouth. Otherwise, people are not going to be able to hear you. And it's very important because in a large hall where the acoustics, as you know, are not very good, without that microphone it's going to be very difficult. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I think, again, generally people did a very good job, is keep your remarks to 10 minutes or less. The fact that I'm allocating 10 minutes does not mean that you have to speak for a full 10 minutes. Make your major points and then allow the next speaker to proceed. I was mentioning to some people before that there have been some studies in the context of jury trials where 3 points, making 3 major points is about the limit when you're engaged in a discussion with a group of people. Beyond that, it starts to get difficult for people to start to synthesize the additional information that you're providing to them. So think about the 3 major points that you want to make and try to focus on those in the course of your discussion, and please make sure that you keep it to 10 minutes or less. By the way, I don't mean to be a speaking head. If anybody has any comments or suggestions while I'm discussing, feel free. Jim, I saw you kind of working forward. Anything? No? Okay. So any thoughts about that? Does anybody feel that they won't be able to limit their comments to 10 minutes? Or? Okay, good. I thought in general everybody really did a nice job, and speaking into the mic, limiting the 10 minutes, I think things will proceed very smoothly.
Do you plan on having a rule for other speakers after the presentations are given?
Okay, the question is other speakers. Will we apply the same rule to other speakers? Absolutely. 10 minutes is the outside limit. Usually other speakers do not require that much time, but it is very important that everybody feel that they're given an equal opportunity to discuss the merits of the motions that are being considered. So if somebody in opposition to any of the town boards wishes to, for example, have a PowerPoint, they should contact us so that we can alert them to the process of making sure the PowerPoint is submitted to the town clerk so that we'll have it on a projector, and that way I'll also be sure to be able to call on them. A lot of times there are a lot of hands out there, and if somebody feels that they want to make a presentation, contact me ahead of the meeting. I'll be sure to make sure that you're on the list of people that I'll be sure to call on. Okay, because it's very important that everybody feels like they have an equal opportunity. Yes?
I just have a quick question, which is, will there be a question and answer period for each speaker after their presentation?
Well, a good question. I was curious to see how people felt about that now. What do you think, Jane? Would you prefer that people ask questions
I
immediately
think while
after?
you're on the topic, I mean, maybe other people disagree, but while you're on the topic and I'm on a roll having
Right.
just
Okay.
done it. But then my follow-up question is, do you identify the question asker from
Yes.
your
Yes,
position, not?
right. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that question. No one is allowed to speak at town meeting. It's the one instance where I am dictatorial. No one is allowed to speak at town meeting unless they're recognized. So anybody who has a question will raise their hand. I will then recognize them. One of the scouts will bring the microphone to them, or they can come to the front of the hall to speak into the microphone in front of the hall, and then they can ask the question. Yep. Jim?
May I suggest that the question and answer after each committee be a question rather than pontification?
Yeah,
And
very
keep the
good.
pontification until the end if someone wants to make a statement.
Right. Okay, so we'll limit the discussion to questions. Thank you, Jim, that's a very good point. We'll limit the discussion to questions, and then the additional comments can follow after the presentations. Yeah, Carol?
I also think that there's some overlap within the various committee presentations, some of the broader topics, so that questions that are very specific, and I think, Jane, to the planning board, you have probably the most specific questions, and those are fine, but if you find that there's a question being asked after Jane's presentation or somebody else's, which is more general, or you know is going to be covered in a future presentation, and you've heard enough of them now to know what's being covered,
Right.
that instead of having somebody try to answer it then, to make sure that it's just, well, that'll be discussed later,
Right.
type thing.
Okay, yeah, very good, Carol, thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. Any other thoughts about this? Before we, any thought? Okay. All right, good. So we will take questions. We'll ask that they be specific to the presentation, that they not be commentary, but they simply be questions seeking additional information. Okay? Okay, now for the order of presentation. Carol, you mentioned that you were rethinking perhaps the order of presentation. So at the hearing we had last week, Concom started. Will Concom be the first presenter for this?
Yeah, my thought was only that the Selectmen's presentation would split
Okay,
first and last.
okay. So we'll start then with Carol for the Board of Selectmen. And then we'll go to Concom. Candy, are you okay with that? Okay, okay. And then the Planning Board, Jane? Okay. Open Space, Amy? Okay. Board of Health, Barbara? Okay. And then now for 6, will it be back to the Board of Selectmen or to the Warrant Committee?
Robin.
To the Warrant Committee, okay. James, is that?
Robin.
Oh, to Robin, to the Board of Selectmen, okay. And then Warrant Committee, to wrap it up, James? Okay, very good. Any further discussion on Article 1 before we move to Article 2? Okay. Again, a reminder, if you haven't already done so, please submit your PowerPoints to Felicia so that we can have them set up to be presented. Yeah, Jim?
As to the vote itself, I understand you're going to do a stand-up vote and no voice vote?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very good. My intention is to have, rather than start with a voice vote, I think we should move directly to a stand-up vote. I suspect the hall is going to be very crowded. It's hard to judge a voice vote 2/3 if it's a close vote. Given the fact that we have a ballot question subsequent to the town meeting, I think it's an important point of information for people to know what the vote was at town meeting. So my intention is to move directly to a standing vote rather than to have a voice vote then followed by a standing vote. Okay? Any thoughts, additional thoughts or comments about that? Okay. With respect to the second motion, or strike that, with respect to Article 2, Mr. Forte will make the motion. And seconder will be Mr. Merrill. Jeff, you'll be a seconder, okay. And then with respect to who will speak to the motion, again, Selectmen, would you like to speak, Carol or Robin? Okay, so Robin will speak. Are any other town boards, would any other town boards like to be recognized after Robin speaks on behalf of the Board of Selectmen? Remember, Article 2 pertains to funding the committee that will study the alternative uses and make recommendations as to the use for the Snyder property if Article 1 passes. Okay, so no further, there will be no further commentary. James, would you want the warrant committee to make a comment?
You could split it up if you wanted, otherwise it's just one presentation throughout.
Okay, Robin, what's your thought about that?
I think maybe what you want, include our recommendations when we first set.
Okay, for the first article, okay. Yeah, I actually think, James, I think I would feel more comfortable if we separated the two. So I think it would be better, it would be a little bit crisper for the voters to have a distinction so that people aren't confused about what they're voting on with respect to the first article versus the second article. So if you don't mind, I think I would prefer that you speak separately on Article 2 after Robin has spoken on behalf of the Selectmen. Okay? Okay. Any other thoughts or comments on Article 2? Okay. Then we'll move from Article 2 to a motion for dissolution. And Mr. Stewart will be making that motion. Mr. Lawrence will be seconding. I will be discussing in my preparatory remarks at the town meeting the importance of everybody staying at the meeting until the meeting is dissolved. Under our town bylaws, a motion to reconsider that is made within 30 minutes of the town vote on a particular article can be reconsidered with a majority vote. So it is very important that after Article 1 is voted on, that people stay to consider and vote on Article 2, and then wait until we have a formal motion that has been adopted by the town meeting for a dissolution. Any further questions? Yes, Jane.
Do we expect a quorum issue?
Well,
Do we expect a quorum issue?
I hope not. Given the interest, I have asked that the cafeteria be prepared for an overflow. I have often been accused of being an optimist, but I think that there's a lot of interest in this, so I'm hoping that we won't have any problem generating the 175 residents that are necessary to achieve a quorum. I do recommend that all of you contact your friends and political foes alike and remind them that this is being considered at town meeting and encourage them to come and to be heard. Okay, thank you, Jane. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well again, thank you for all your hard work. It's greatly appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. If you have any additional thoughts, feel free to call me. I'll be home all weekend. My number's in the book. Okay, so I'm always happy to entertain questions and recommendations. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, Barbara.
I once mentioned this idea to Carol.
Speaking to the microphone.
Yeah, and Carol was saying, well, why don't you bring it up? And
Barbara, move closer to the microphone. There you go, good.
I am slightly embarrassed, but I can't help myself because I tend to think it would be a wonderful opportunity. There are a lot of positions open in town for volunteers.
Right.
And particularly the Lyme Disease Committee, we need 2 openings, I know the open space and so on and so forth. Is there a planning board? Is there any way that you can, in a rather politically correct and elegant way, either at the beginning or at the end say, this is a wonderful opportunity, I would like to remind everybody, this is a town and we need volunteers, and I leave it up to you. I just wanted to make sure to plant this idea just in case you think it would be useful and a good opportunity.
I will try to include that in my preparatory remarks. I cannot promise that it will be elegant. In fact, it is unlikely that it will be, but nevertheless, I will include that in my preparatory remarks. Okay? Yes,
Are you, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to want to point out, both Lexington and Concord moderators do that every annual meeting, yeah, which is, for just that reason. And even when there are instances they're all full, just to let people know there's additional ways to participate.
Well, that's great. I'll be in very good company then. Thank you.
Are you fully familiar with all the open positions?
No, I am not.
So if you would be so kind to email Jim any position that you know has an opening, that way, when it's in the preamble, he can include them.
Right. I have noticed on the webpage that there are some listed. In fact, the warrant committee still has an opening listed, but I'm happy to say that we did fill that position a couple of weeks ago. So the website is a little bit behind in terms of the positions that have been filled. So if you have a chance to send me an email or call me, that would be great. Okay, well, if there are no further comments or questions, let me adjourn this moderator's meeting. And again, thank you very, very much, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday. Thank you. Have a good evening. Fellas.
Take care. Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting of September 11th. We started at 7 o'clock this evening because we had a moderators meeting at 6:30 to prepare for the special town meeting this coming Monday, which I hope you will all attend. In memory, given that it's September 11th, in memory of those who were murdered 13 years ago, I would like to have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda today is an annual occurrence, a delightful one. And once again, Mary Carrigan of the Personnel Board will come and speak to us about the recommendation of the Personnel Board for the general salary increase for the non-unionized employees in the town of Dover. Mary, thank you. Welcome. Please.
Good evening. Yes, we are here to talk about an annual event, which is the review of the salary plan for the non-union employees in the town. And I'd just like to recap the process and the framework for this decision. For the last probably 6 to 8 years, we have worked together, the Personnel Board, the Warrant Committee, and the Selectmen, to build a process by which we could make this determination. And we've tried over time to make that a data foundation process, and what you'll see before you are the numbers that we've used over this point in time to come to the recommendation for the general increase. So the numbers that we use, the primary numbers we use are the CPI for the Northeast, which is the Consumer Index, and then the ECI, which is the Employment Index, which basically tells us how salaries are moving over time. We include in the information the Social Security COLA. We include the national government numbers to see what national government employees are receiving. And then we also give you the history of the other town employees that are not included in this increase and the general increase history, so that you can see over time how these numbers move and how we've made these decisions. What I would turn your attention to, we also met last night, so the Personnel Board meets first, and it looks at these numbers and comes together with a recommendation. We then go to the Warrant Committee. We met with the Warrant Committee last night. We had, I think, a good discussion about the numbers and how we came to the decision we did. We also had a good discussion, actually led by the Warrant Committee, talking about, at some point in time in the future, doing perhaps a pricing study, rather than a full-born study, a pricing study to see where we are in the market. And one of the things that the Personnel Board would like to do over the course of this year is perhaps have conversations with 3 committees to decide, is this the right time to do this? We could look at the numbers 6 months into the year, see what's happening with trends, and do we want to look at a pricing study, not for 16, but for 17, so that we have plenty of time to think about it. And we'll take the responsibility to come back and talk to both boards about that maybe in the first quarter of next year. But here we have some interesting numbers. The first page you see is a bit of a blip, and it did influence some of our decision-making. You'll see that the ECI, this is the Employment Cost Index, so this is where salaries are moving. Generally in the U.S. is 2%, but we're seeing 2.8% in the Northeast. Now this is the first year we've seen an uptick. It may be an individual year and this disappears next year, but it's something that we should just think about as we go forward, whether or not that's a trend or just a data point. You'll also see behind that some more detail around the number. You'll see that the CPI is coming at about 2%. And so it looks locally like the consumer prices are moving at 2%, but the salaries are moving about 2.8. So we took those things into consideration. And just to frame the cost of this decision, every 1 percentage point costs about $22,000. And that's the salaries of about 50 full-time employees, and then there's another, I believe, 80 that are either the fire engineers or not full-time employees that would be affected by this general increase. So that 1% is $22,000. When you look at the cost of a 2.2% increase, it's $48,400. And we realize that we have to balance both the market information with the cost information, but we think that it's advisable this year to look at 2.2%. We did look at 2%, which is $44,000 cost, so it's $4,400 less than what we recommended, and we actually looked at 2.4%, which was more. And we didn't feel that that was the right thing to do for the town. I think it's a single data point. We need to see what we see year after year. But the 2.2% still is keeping us almost on an average of that general increase over time. If you did the 2.2, the average actually slips a little bit. But again, you're talking tenths of a point, so it's not a lot of money, or a lot of difference in terms of the actual increase number. So I'm not sure if you have questions at this point? Comments?
Well, having been involved for about 15 years now between the Warrant Committee and Selectmen, it's a pleasure each year for the last 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 to not go through the chaos that we went through before. And I commend everybody in the Warrant Committee and the Personnel Board for continuing this process, because it has made a huge difference to objectively look at it rather than subjectively look at it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would also mention, for those that might think, how does 2.2 compare to some of our unionized contracts, that our philosophy for our non-union employees is to pay at the median.
Yes.
Which might be a little different in some of the other contracts, so it would be comparing apples and oranges.
Yes, you really do have to consider the different unions that we have, teachers or police. They would really be dealt with in their own environment and not comparable to our non-union employees.
And on those contracts, there's a lot of other compensation issues that come to play when you look at total comp.
Yes.
Where this is much more simple.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything else to add. Thank you, Mary.
Sure.
No, I don't either, and I echo your remarks, Carol. It really is a great process, man.
Wonderful.
And it's nice to see the trend. I mean, you know, I think we've done well, and I think when we do finally get the pricing study done, I would be surprised if we weren't maintaining wages at the level we're targeting.
Great. Good. Well, it's nice to hear that there's an audience to talk about the pricing survey. And so if you'd like, I'll take the task to bring us together in the first quarter of next year. There's a lot going on right now. And maybe we can sit down as 3 boards and talk about the pricing study. Does that make sense? We can look at where the trends are in February or so and see what those trends are developing so that we're really ready for 2017.
Look forward to that. Thanks, Mary.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Please thank the whole Personnel Board as well.
Yes, I will. They're a great board.
So if there are no further questions,
I don't have any.
then I move we approve a general increase of 2.2% for fiscal year 2016.
Second.
Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Hearing none, it is passed. Great, thank you. Thanks again, Mary. We have 2 following agenda items that involve Park and Rec. I see Dave McTavish and Nancy Sims. Want to come on up?
Did you draw the short straw, Nancy? Did you draw the short straw?
So the first item is to fill the position that was vacated by long-term Commissioner Scott Seidman, who resigned when he moved out of Dover.
Yes.
So who might you be recommending?
So all 5 members of the Park and Rec Commission have met Valerie Lynn, either at our most recent meeting or in person, one-on-one. And she's very enthusiastic about joining the board, and we are enthusiastic about having her. She lives on Center Street, and again, her name is Valerie Lynn.
I know Valerie, she's a great choice. Moved to Dover, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, sort of lost track, but got involved immediately in all kinds of activities, and that's a wonderful choice.
Good, thank you.
I did meet Valerie at the Park and Rec meeting the other morning, and you guys are very high on her, so congratulations on getting a good candidate.
Thank you.
You know, she has young children in town, one in Chickering, I believe, and one in infant stage.
In preschool, I believe, right.
So I welcome that breath of fresh air to the Park and Rec commissioners.
Thank you. We did vote at our meeting on Tuesday, and it was unanimous, 5-0. And I also want to point out that the other 4 commissioners, 2 of them are at school open houses, and 1 of them is out of state. So if they were not, they would be here with me.
Right, I understand Valerie's at the same open house,
And Valerie is at the, yes.
which is important.
We encourage her to go to open house rather than to be here to meet her second grade son's teacher. And
May I take this opportunity to thank Scott for the many years of volunteering on warrant and in Park and Rec Commissioner. I don't think I had the opportunity to. So, Scott, if you're listening anywhere, thank you very much.
he will be missed, and they're big shoes to fill, but I think Valerie's up for it.
No doubts. I just saw that there's actually 1 year left on the term.
Correct.
So this would be an appointment until June 30th, until the election in May of
In May.
2015. Right,
Yep,
it's coming
that's our
up.
understanding.
So Jim, would you like to make the motion?
Yes, I will make the motion to appoint Valerie Lynn of Center Street to replace Scott Seidman as a Park and Rec Commissioner for the remainder of his term, which is 1 year.
Second.
All in favor?
Madam
Aye.
Chair,
Aye.
this
Yes.
requires a roll call vote of the selectmen and the attending Park and Rec Commission.
Aha, okay, well, let's start with the roll call of Park and Rec. Ms. Sims?
Aye.
Mr. Dolly?
Yes.
Robin?
Yes.
Carol is aye, so there we go. Thank you. Great, thanks.
Thank you, Carol.
Before we get to the next item? The Robin Fund? Okay.
About 2 months ago, I sent you all a letter, Selectmen and the Town Administrator, as Board of Commissioners, to ask to have us get relief from the water charges at Carroll Park. We have a current agreement with the Dover Water Company, now with a new company, that we only pay for water for 2 quarters a year, but we're down from November through April anyways. So we'd like to get relief if we could, and only be charged for the two quarters each year from April through October.
Excuse me, we took this up at our meeting 2 meetings ago, I believe.
Okay?
And I obviously you weren't notified that we want to stay status quo and we will not change the way it's billed right now.
Can I ask why? I mean, you're taking water from the parkland itself anyway, and we maintain the line.
I'd like to,
Right.
I can fully answer that after looking at my notes from the meeting 2 meetings ago, quite
Right.
honestly, before I give you details. I'm just telling you that we took it up and voted not to change the way it's billed. And I can follow up with you on the details later on if you'd like.
Much appreciated, yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Okay, next item is the Park and Rec revolving fund for fiscal year 15. This is, I think, the second year of a new policy that involves the Board of Selectmen approving the revolving fund budget for Park and Rec. So Nancy?
We submitted our revolving fund report in the beginning of the summer, and we changed the format, which I think is helpful for everybody. The fees, or the balances on the far right-hand column from, I think registration software down, are funds that we have voted to sort of accrue money in and can't be moved out of those accounts. We have a number of programs that have made profit, and they are wonderfully balancing those programs that we offer that run into the negative. There's been some confusion in the past as to whether profit balances within a particular sport are to be allocated for that particular sport. And we've tried in the last year and a half or so to make sure that all parents know that funds that are contributed in the form of field fees go to the general recreation efforts of the Park and Rec Department. We've used some of those funds to add new programs. We had a fun foray into doing an outdoor movie this summer, and despite a rain delay or a freezing cold night delay, we had a successful audience. I think we had 105 people at the outdoor movie, which was great fun. We hope to continue that, and perhaps in a year or two seek to find corporate sponsors of that program so that we can then break even on that program and apply revenues or profits to other programs. Instead of rambling further, I'd like to invite you to ask particular questions, and then I can respond directly to those.
Well, this is one of the more simple and easier to understand forms. I think we finally found the solution.
Thank you. I agree.
And there was a delay this year for a variety of reasons. I think at this point we probably can get into a routine. Some of the discussions that relate to the fiscal year 16 revolving fund, which per policy should be approved in June prior to the fiscal year. Once the operating budget discussions with the warrant committee this winter and the capital budget discussions with the capital budget committee this winter, will make it a lot easier to do the revolving fund. Because I know there was a delay in that as the capital budget committee had some discussions on what bucket gets used for what expenses. So I think we're in a position now where we can say this should start rolling along on a pretty smooth basis.
Yep, our plan is to get our budgets for fiscal year 16 in December.
When do you anticipate getting final 6/30/2014 numbers? Because this is just through Q3? Or are these the
June
final
30th, 2014,
Yeah.
we do have those.
Okay. So is the title just incorrect? Because it says as of Q, so I'm just a little bit confused. Are these the actual year-end numbers or still just estimates? These are the actual, okay.
I have a form that has a title of FY14 actuals on the top of my chart.
Right, through March 31st.
And then it says as of Q3.
Perhaps you don't have the most recent form.
Can I see what you're looking at, Nancy, please? And
This is the one you submitted, and then this is the one that's the actuals.
Also, that should be 2015.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mistake.
See, it's just confusing because this says as of, so it just may be the title's not right.
So I have two sheets. I have this one on one sheet and I have this one on the other sheet, but mine is as of quarter four.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
It
so
doesn't say as of quarter four, which threw me off, and I,
Okay.
Okay, I see where the miscommunication was. I will say, though, that to reiterate what Carol said, it is somewhat of a new program for the commissioners to deal with. And sitting in all your meetings for the last, how many years now, about 100 years? I commend you for the work that and the additional work you've taken on. You know, the whole goal is to, kids programs and get the town running and all that good stuff. So if we do this additional work, it's probably a total pain in the neck, but we appreciate the work done here.
well, thank you. It's, we've got a great,
This particular revolver has always been sort of a target for discussion.
yes.
So transparency in this particular issue is very important, as I've said in the past, and I'll continue to say.
Yep.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Mark Galoni, who's the assistant director, has done a lot of work on this, as has Amy Caffrey. So we've got a really great staff, led by Mr. McTavish.
Yes.
It's so much easier to follow.
Yes, you didn't, the other form was too much detail.
Right. I mean, everything was there, but it was just,
Right.
every year I had to re-educate
And you needed the
myself.
super strong readers to.
Right.
That too. I also like the fact that you've got your standard programs on the top. And then you've
Yes.
broken out the what could be just a particular expense for a given year versus a rolling
An accrual
expense.
kind of expense. Yep, thank you.
Any further comments or questions?
No. Thank you.
Jim, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make the motion that we approve the fiscal 15 forecast for the Park and Rec revolving fund.
Second.
Any further comments?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks again.
Okay.
Please thank the whole commission for their work on this. and
You're
Mark
welcome. Thank you,
specifically.
Carol and Robin and Jim.
Dave, I'll get back to you on that other matter and give you the reasons.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're still doing appointments. So, Robin, I believe you have some appointments tonight?
Finally.
I'm still remiss.
My first appointments are the Dover Cultural Council. First, I would like to thank Nancy Doherty and Wendy Bornstein and Karen O'Brien for their service in the past years. We have three new members that I'm going to appoint and one who will re-up. Diane Brewer has let us know that she would like to be on the council, and this will be a 3-year term. Laura Clark and Elizabeth Rich, all three would like to be appointed, and Olia Lupin has told us that she will re-up.
Okay. So we have three new. One
One
re-up, all
re-up.
for 3-year terms.
So what was it, Lara Clark?
Laura Clark, Elizabeth Rich,
Yeah.
Diane Brewer, those are the three new members, and then Olia Lupin.
Re-up.
He's re-up. And I'd like to thank Linda Holliner for her help with this.
Great, so we'd like to make a motion?
Yeah, so I would like to make a motion to nominate Diane Brewer, Laura Clark, Elizabeth Rich, and Olia Lupin for 3-year terms on the Dover Cultural Council.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that will take the place of Nancy Doherty, Karen O'Brien, and Wendy Bornstein.
Thank you. And then Finance Committee on Roads. I have contacted John Walsh, and he has agreed to be nominated again for another 3-year term. So I would like to thank him. And I would like to nominate John Walsh for a 3-year term on the Finance Committee on Roads.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jack's been on since, what, 2005? Okay.
He has a lot of institutional knowledge.
Yes, he does. And what about this one?
I have it
Okay,
on my list.
thank you, Jack. Any more?
That's it. I just feel like I should get a gold star for having any.
Absolutely. Mr. Ramsey, I believe you have an appointment?
I have one, Madam Chair. On page 13, Town Council, Anderson Krieger. She and Bill Leahy have indicated a willingness to re-up.
And that is a one-year term?
One-year term, yes, ma'am.
And we have certainly been using their services a lot over the last 120 days.
They've expanded their services to the town also, and they've done an admirable job.
Right.
And really assisted us greatly over the last 120 days.
Agreed.
Certainly wouldn't be able to do a town meeting on Monday
Without them.
without them. And their timeliness and depth and ability to explain legal stuff in English is much appreciated. So it's my pleasure to move to appoint Anderson and Krieger for another one-year term as town council.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, there's still a few left, and I know that the Selectmen's office has received 4 or 5 notices from citizens about their interest, and we will be in touch. So last couple of meetings, we've actually been approving various gifts that have been coming to the town. This is a new policy that also is relatively, I think we're in our 2nd year now of gift acceptance. So who, Greer or Dave, who's doing this one?
Mrs. Lisbon, we have received a request from the Council on Aging for the board to accept the gift of a desk. This would be for the Council on Aging Director, and also a credenza, file drawers, a hatch. Apparently it's a beautiful office suite, and it is a gift of the Friends of the Council on Aging, and they are asking that the Board of Selectmen accept this gift so that can be put in the Director's office.
Okay, very nice. I'm reading the director's letter to us, Janet Claypool, and she would like to thank the volunteer Carol Jackman for doing a lot of the legwork in getting this furniture negotiating discount. So thank you, Carol, for that. And I will make the motion if
Sure.
I'll make the motion that we accept the gift of COA from the Friends of COA furniture, as described in this letter.
Second. Any further comments? Very generous of the Friends. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. And a police department grant?
Mrs. Lisbon, that wasn't ready this
Okay.
evening. That's the 911 grant, but the chief has to fill out the form.
Okay.
We'll
So
get
we'll
that
get-
for your next meeting.
Okay, good. Oh, it's capital budget time again.
Seems like just yesterday, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
yes, it does.
I agree.
Mr. Ramsey?
Madam Chair, the fiscal year 2016 requests for the rehabilitation of the 4 public restrooms, the replacement of the upper level carpeting in the library, painting of the interior at the library, the boiler plants at the Carroll Community Center, and the repair and painting of the apparatus floor are all items that have moved into the current fiscal year or in the same fiscal year, but 1 year sooner now that we've revised the capital plan for this year. The boiler plant item is in there because it's been in the capital budget, but as you recall, we commissioned a HVAC engineer to do a study to give us a clearer view of exactly what the condition of the boiler plant is and when we will need to replace it. That is in draft stages now, but we haven't received the final. So we're leaving that in here for now until we get the results from the engineer.
But we should have that during the regular capital budget timeline.
I would expect within a week or two.
Oh, okay.
The only other changes for the new items in the out year is that you'll see in item number 6, a new item for the kitchen renovation over at Protective Agencies. That's $12,000. And the thinking there is that, God bless you.
Excuse me.
That renovation is not part of the dispatch reconfiguration.
Right.
But since the town did in fact vote the reconfiguration, it's an adjunct to it, it would be timely to buff up the kitchen. So that's why that item is in here. And as a trade-off to that, we moved item number 23, the holding cell retrofit. The poor cousin here seems to always get moved out from fiscal 17 back to the year 2020. Everything else is as you've seen it before. The new items in fiscal year 20 are re-roofing of the library, flat roof, the de-leading of the Protective Agency's firing range, the re-roofing of the Protective Agency's building, the holding cell retrofit, good luck, the reglazing and painting of all townhouse windows. If you'll notice, a lot of the glazing is coming out of the windows here since the renovation that was done about 15 years ago. And then a new item we don't have a price for yet at the Carroll Community Center, all in the spirit of trying to renovate that building over time. We're identifying the replacement or retrofit of all of the lighting plant over there as something to be looked at going forward. And then finally, the replacement of our mail machine, which at some point will no longer be functioning, it'll be obsolete, and we'll be forced to replace it. So that's in there in that out year as well.
So these new items in 2020 are really just part of our normal long-range viewpoint of analysis of our facility needs.
An attempt to see over the horizon.
Yep.
Dave, if I may, the kitchen at the Protective Agency building, legally, could we, if there was enough funds that have been appropriated already, could we put that into reconfiguration?
I don't believe we could based on the wording of the warrant article.
Okay.
It's definitely a separate area,
It's a separate space.
Then-
segregated.
Okay, thank you. It's a shame because the building will be torn apart.
Right, it makes a lot of sense, but
Well, it's a modest sum of money, so it's not going to be like it's gutting the kitchen. It's going to be more like buffing it up with floor paint.
it needs it.
It does.
Well, this is the first time I've looked at that. I'd like to have the opportunity to compare it to my notes from last year
Yes.
before we go forward and
Certainly.
approve it for the capital budget committee. Perhaps we can just do a quick update on page 2 of the items that are in process. So these were items that were approved at prior town meetings that are not yet complete.
So starting with the Council on Aging air conditioning, that's a bid item, and we are in the process of bidding that work as we speak. Police dispatch renovation, we're in the process of, we've commissioned the architect to prepare the final design documents in preparation for bidding. The townhouse roof repairs, you may have noticed in the last week or so, it always seems to be raining in this building. It's, those items are being done now and should be completed in the next 5 working days. And everything else but the rail trail feasibility study has been completed and closed out.
Can you give us an estimate of time on the first 2, please?
The air conditioning will be done this fall before the weather closes in. Dispatch, I believe we're calling to bid that, Greer, in February.
Right, because that's not supposed to start till the
Yes.
spring, so we
Yeah,
could save on
right, so we
heating
could save
costs.
on the heating oil, that's correct.
Yeah, we're going to be relocating the dispatch temporarily to the garage, so we want to do that work in the warmer weather. So we're on schedule with that, Mr. Bell.
Okay, thank you.
Great, any other questions?
I do not.
Wonderful, so I'll be able to take a look, maybe do a little touring around some of the buildings, and maybe put this on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay.
I think as soon as we get that boiler study, that will be interesting.
Yes.
to
Oh,
see.
certainly.
No little hints.
And Mr. Dolly, you can work with CMAC on number 1.
Yes, I will. Very interested.
Flexibility and timing for the board.
I asked Mr. Ramsey today for the plans and the scope of the project where it gets to this money. So I'm very, very interested in that.
If memory serves, I think we had moved out either the carpet or the painting of the library to have the two of them done in the same year.
Right.
I think that's right.
Right. Great, okay, so if we just all can be prepared to vote on this at our next meeting,
Good.
do whatever field trips we need to. Thank you. Next item is approval of police detail write-offs. And there is a letter in our package here from July 25th from the chief.
As I read the letter, the final comment is if we approve this write-off, it'll bring us current and zero it out through the end of fiscal 2011, which isn't really current to me.
Well, collection efforts are ongoing in the years after that, and you may recall we're using a similar protocol here as we do with the ambulance receipts, because there's a long tail on the billing cycle. So we like to stay current, but a couple of years.
Okay, so there's a lag.
Yes.
Okay, so the 3-year lag is in
Yep.
effect. Thank you.
And this has been done a couple of other times under the previous incumbent chief, just to keep the books fresh.
And once we've identified a vendor who refuses to pay, are they allowed to continue to do business in Dover, or do we ask for money up front?
I don't know the answer to that question, Mrs. Lisbon. I can say that the details are a matter of public safety, so I think that if they're doing lawful work, we would not want to take the draconian measure of not providing a detail, and I don't think we could formally prevent them from doing work.
Well, I appreciate that, but I think it might be helpful, and it could be, there are so few here that this may not even be an issue, but if you could just ask the chief to check and get a sense of whether there are particular vendors that seem to be problematic.
They are not repeat
They're not,
scofflaws, I can
okay,
assure
fine,
that,
okay, fine.
yes.
Okay, that was my point, okay, thank
Sort
you.
of surprising that Verizon didn't pay.
I am surprised that there'd be a local vendor who refuses to pay a police detail, then continue to drive through the town.
Well, there's no legal connection there. There's no legal nexus there, Mr. Dollar. And the Verizon bill, I will point out in fiscal 11, you can see that on the right column, it says paid number 45, but the GL not paid.
Yeah.
So there's an internal conflict. In the books over at the police station, it's reflected as paid, but there's no evidence that it ever was paid when it hit the books where it matters, the general ledger.
So that's the chief's comment about tightening up the procedures?
Yes, and we have been working on it, making a lot of progress for a couple of years.
Okay.
And I can say that on the basis of the $170,000 we bill a year, this represents about 0.5% uncollected. So it's very, very good.
Even better than our ambulance collection?
Even better than ambulance. And that may have something to do with Mr. Dolly's comment, but I won't swear to that.
And the collection process involves a third party, or is it just internal?
We do it internally. We have a prescribed process that is followed. And the secret to the success is the timeliness of moving that process along and making sure we do everything we're supposed to do timely.
Okay, thank you. And then I will make the motion that we charge off an uncollectible amount of $3,121 and that was owed to the Dover Police Department through details.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Please thank the chief for his efforts in
I
typing
will,
this up.
thank you.
Okay, oh, things must be slowing down.
Wedding season is over.
Wedding season is over. We only have 3 special licenses tonight. Let's see, I'll just read them all off and then we can approve them in bulk. We have one on September 27th at Elm Bank. I know that we had a communique on that. Have a wonderful wedding. We have a request for October 14th at Elm Bank. And we have a request for October 19th at, where am I? Elm Bank, there we are. So do you have a motion to accept these 3?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sign those. Thank you.
Bat mitzvah.
Good, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Grant.
We have a new face here tonight. Mona, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Mona has joined the Board of Selectmen's office as our administrative assistant. We've been waiting a long time for your arrival. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
And for citizens of Dover who happen to be wandering about the townhouse, stop in and say hello and introduce yourself. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Citizens' comments? James, anything? Okay. Well, needless to say, the big item for the next week is the town meeting on Monday, 7 p.m. down at the auditorium at the regional school campus. Please, we urge you all to attend. This is an important topic of Springdale Avenue that we've been working on as a team in a town for the last 120 days. So we hope as many of you as possible can come and give your opinion and your vote. And then, depending on the vote, 2/3 vote on Monday night to approve, and then a majority vote at the state and town election on November 4th to approve the debt. So this is a 2-phase process. We don't get to phase 2 of November 4th unless the town meeting on Monday night approves the acquisition of the property. So please come. We're prepared for an overflow crowd, ever optimistic. I hope to see you all there. Anything else?
No, Sunday, thank you, Grant.
Great. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
We could stay.